the Chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, Neye AMANSEM Da, Medinde Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Akwamuman, Amaruka, Atifi, Odwirafo, ODWIRAMAN Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning African black people. Today is AMANSEM Day, Affairs of the Nation Day. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America, within ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the broadcast. We're opening up the chat room right now. If you have a question or a comment that you would like to communicate in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you have a question or a comment on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised, and then we can interact with you on the phone line. If you have any questions as far as, let us know in the chat room. If there are any sound issues. Blog Talk had a couple of issues previously with the sound, so if there are any sound issues, just let us know. Or if you have any issues logging in, let us know, or hit us up on the Facebook page and let us know. All right, so typically we have had on a weekly basis. We've had 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis, and now we are entering into this broadcast. We used to have live shows 3 times a week. We now have a combination of live as well as pre-recorded podcasts for our different programs. This the first normal 3 programs, Akhan for Nationism, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion, on Joda Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of Nationism, the Akhan expression of Afuraitkaitnut, African ancestral religion from the Akhan perspective. Number 1, because we are Akhan. Number 2, because of the misinformation that has been propagated regarding Akhan ancestral religion, culture, cosmology, philosophy, ritual practice, and so forth, propagated by misinformed individuals in the Western Hemisphere, colonized and misinformed individuals on the continent of Afuraitkai, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and white culture in general. These infections have infected their presentation of the culture, and therefore that information has been misinformed. So we deal with the cosmology, culture, ritual practices, the nature of the abosom, the deity, the nature of the nananom, unsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors of our blood circles, the nature of Nyamewa and Nyame, the great mother and great father, the supreme being, the nature of Nyankumpon and Nyankunton, the creator and creatress, or grandchildren of the supreme being, and so forth. So we deal with a number of different issues on Akhanfo Nanasom. On our show Ojira, which is Benada, Abenada, Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with Nanasom, or ancestral religion, not just from the Akhan perspective, but in general with regard to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people in general, and how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. When we talk about Nanasom, which is our general term for ancestral religion, we're talking about the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Through ritual, we incorporate those things. Through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore our thoughts, intentions, and actions in harmony with order, therefore restore balance to our lives. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. That's Nanasom. So we deal with that perspective of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, no matter what expression NANASOM takes or ancestral religion takes, whether it's Akhan, Yoruba, Efe, Igbo, Basa, Fula, Hoodoo, Voodoo, Vodou, Juju, Grigri, Wanga, whatever the tradition is. We're talking about the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. It is through purification, Ojira, that we operationalize NANASOM. Through purification, we operationalize our practice of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance to our lives. When we talk about ancestral religion from that proper perspective, the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, where we seek every moment of every day to harmonize every thought, intention, and action with divine order. And when we make mistakes, we align ourselves and realign ourselves with order on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year, entire life process, that we show our ancestral religion and our purification impacts every aspect of our lives. In that broadcast, Ojira, purification, we also deal with texts, kanat and kamet, ritual practices, trustery, clearing up misinformation, purifying trustery, purifying the presentation of our ancestral religious practices and culture and philosophy and true historical information and on. So this is what we deal with on Ojira Da, or the Ojira broadcast on Tuesday night. On Awukuda or Akhuada, Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace, and what we deal with is showcasing businesses, organizations, and institutions in the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut community who are serving the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut community in a positive capacity, but who also maintain their ancestral religious values in the process. Service to our community is informed by their ancestral religious values. So we've had a number of businesses, organizations, and institutions come onto the show and spend 2 hours with us, interviewing with us to talk about their business, their organization, their institution, how they founded their practice, how they're serving the community, and how their ancestral religious values impact their service to the community, how it informs their philosophy of service to the community. In that vein, we have published our OCOM economic development model. That is an economic development model rooted in our ancestral religious values. And when you look on our page, the OCOM Economic Development Model page, you will see that we have published that document. You can download that document for free and study that document. We also did a 4-part series on Blog Talk dissecting that model, showing how it impacts every aspect of our lives, approaching economic development from a positive perspective, an ancestral religious perspective, a holistic perspective, serving every aspect of our needs. Serving the 7 principal values of nation building, which we deal with. We're going to go into some tonight. We have also launched the OCOM Economic Development Model Operation, where we highlight and support one Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut business, institution, or organization per week for 52 weeks. We support and seek to support one Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks for optimal capital infusion. When you look on the OCOM Economic Development Model page, you'll see the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions that have come onto the show. You see the links to their interviews that they did with us on the show. You see the links to their websites and so forth. This is part of that process. Part of the OCOM Economic Development Model is the strategy that we use that we call starve the beast and feed the pride. That means on a weekly basis, you make a determination about what funds you would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then you starve the beast and feed the pride. You reallocate those funds away from the white businesses, organizations, and so forth, and redirect them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. When you redirect $5 or $10 or $15 away from a white business during the course of a week and reallocate those funds to the black business, organization, or institution of the week, that is a reallocation of $5, $10, or $15 back into our community. If 1,000 of our people engage that process, then that is a reallocation of $5, $10, or $15,000 away from white businesses, away from our absolute enemies. That money being redirected to the business, black business organization or institution of the week. An infusion of $5, $10, or $15,000 in capital taken from our own income that we would have wasted with the whites in our offspring to enrich them, but then redirecting them to that money to the business organization or institution of the week that allows that business to remain open, to expand, to hire from within the community, to serve us at a greater capacity, and so forth. It's a win-win situation. And of course, if we do not engage that process, then by default, that $5, $10, or $15 that we would have wasted at McDonald's or Starbucks or Chipotle or Walmart or wherever it is, collectively $5, $10, $15,000 or more, if we do not engage the process that we implement in the Akhan economic development model to starve the beast and feed the pride, if we do not engage that process, then by default we are leaving that $5, $10, or $15,000 in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring, whether they're white Americans, white Europeans, white Hispanics, white Latinos, Latinas, white Asians, white Hindus, white Arabs, and so forth, white pseudo-Native Americans, the whites and their offspring, our absolute enemies. We are leaving those funds in their businesses, and by default we are financing our own oppression. So we starve the beast and feed the pride. That's what we deal with on the Wednesday night broadcast. Now, give me 1 second. I want to make sure that everybody can hear. Blog Talk was having some issues with regard to sound, so if you could just to check to make sure if the sound is clear. If you're in the chat room, send us a message right quick. Hold on. Okay, good. All right. And so for those who came in a little bit later, if you want to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk, and then you can interact in the chat room. If you are on the phone line and would like to have you have a question or would like to make a comment, simply hit the number 1, and therefore we can see that your hand is raised, and then we can interact with you. Now, those are the 3 broadcasts that we have been doing for the past just about, in fact, 2 years. We started on May 29th in 2014, and so that 2-year anniversary just passed. We have added on to those 3 broadcasts, and now on Yauda, which is Thursday, Yauda, also Yada, Abada, Thursday nights, we will have AMANSEM, means the affairs or the issues, Sem of the Oman, the nation. So we will be dealing with the affairs of the nation, issues that directly impact the Afuraitkaitnut nation, and specifically the Oman, the specific nation, ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation of Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere, African black people in the Western Hemisphere. Specific issues that deal with us, how we need to address specific issues, and how they are related to AMANSEM, nation building, restoration, and AMANNE, which we define as nationism. So this is what we're going to get into. And this is the inaugural broadcast for AMANSEM. So as we said earlier, we had these 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. Joda Benada, Awukuda, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Akanto Nanasom on Mondays. Ojira on Tuesdays. And Ekwa Marketplace on Wednesdays. And now on Thursdays, Yauda, we will have AMANSEM, which is the affairs of the nation. Some of the broadcasts will be live, and some will be pre-recorded podcasts that we will upload as well. Now, the topic that we're going to address in this inaugural broadcast of AMANSEM is our ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE, ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation AFAHYE Festival Conference, which is coming up June 24th here in Washington, D.C. It is an all-day conference that we will be hosting. It is open to Afuraitkaitnut people, Afuraitkaitnut people only. As with all of our events, it is a free event. Registration is required. Registration is free. So when you go to our ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE page on our website, you can get the detailed information. You can download the flyer. You can also get the link linking you directly to register on our NHOMA site, our NHOMA network. So you can register for the conference. We will have presentations, some presentations presented there. We have some presentations. People will be submitting video presentations dealing with different aspects of AMANNE, Afuraitkaitnut, Nationism. So this is the first of its kind, first conference of its kind, dealing with AMANNE, dealing with nationism, the purification of nationalism. So we're going to have this conference. It will be an annual conference. We have 3 annual conferences. We have ODWIRAMAN, the Hoodoo Nation Festival, which is the Akhan ancestral religion in North America. That conference is in October. And that's an all-day conference. We have presenters. We also have vendors and so forth. That's right after the Equinox, the beginning of our new year. Our new year begins September 22nd or September 23rd, depending on the first day, full day of the autumn or Autumn Equinox, so-called fall equinox, that evening point of the year. That is the end of the warm cycle, the beginning of the seeding cycle. That is the beginning of our year. And then a few weeks later, 3 weeks later, then we have the Hoodoo Nation Festival. We had our first annual festival last October, very successful. That festival is coming up once again. That's around right after the autumn equinox. Then in March, around the spring equinox, we have Echisan, Afuraitkaitnut, or African Ancestral Religious Reversion. And again, that's an all-day festival. Of course, it's free and open to Afuraitkaitnut people only. And we're dealing with ancestral religious reversion, dealing with our ancestral religious practices born of the blood circles of our people here in the Western Hemisphere. Hoodoo, which is the Akhan tradition maintained in North America. Vodou, which is the Fawn and Ebe traditions maintained in the blood circles of our people in North America. Grigri is the Bambara tradition and Mindi tradition born of the blood circles of our people who were brought into North America. Wanga is the Ovambo tradition born of the blood circles of our people as we maintain our traditions in North America and so forth. So we had our first annual Echisan Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference this past March on the equinox. It was a successful event, and of course that will be coming up next March. And then we have our third annual conference right around the time of the so-called summer solstice. Summer solstice is the hottest time of the year, longest day. The sun is at its, or the Aten is at its highest point in the sky. It's around June 21st, 22nd, depending on the year. And we're having our conference around that time to take advantage of that energy, that high point, that most powerful point of the year. So you look at the 2 evening points of the year, it's similar to, the equinoxes are similar to the rising of the sun, which is around spring, it's akin to spring, and then the setting of the sun is akin to fall. The rising of the sun breaking through the horizon in the east, the setting of the sun passing below the horizon in the west. So those are the 2 evening points, the horizon point. So then you look at the sun at its peak around noon at the highest point in the sky. That fills out that ahinasa, that fills out that triangle. So you have the bottom right-hand corner. You have that one point of the triangle, which is like sunrise. The bottom left-hand corner is akin to sunset. And then you have the apex, the sun at the height of its energy, the apex of the triangle, the apex of the quote-unquote mer or pyramid. That is around the summer solstice, the hottest time of the year. The sun is releasing its most vigorous energy at that time of the year, we take advantage of that. So when you look on our Nanasom page, we show two Ahinasa diagrams, two triangular diagrams, and they have circles around the point. On the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see on one of them, and we'll put the link in the chat room real quick so you can see that. You can pull it up right now, and that is the Nanasom page. For those who are not in the chat room, Nanasom is N-A-S-O-M. So it's odwirafodakom/NANASOM.html. So when you pull up that page, you'll see Nanasom is talking about Afurakani, that's ancestral religion, no matter what form it takes. We give a description of what ancestral religion is. But then you scroll down towards the middle part of the page, and you will see a couple of those, the diagram that we're talking about. And you'll see on one of them, the first one, in the triangular diagram, Ahinasa, which means triangle, three-cornered structure in our Akhan tradition. On the bottom right-hand corner is the Abosom, which means the divinity. The bottom left-hand corner of the triangular Ahinasa is the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our blood circle. And then at the apex, or the head, the top, is the Okra, or Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness. So we're talking about, with a human being, the Abosom and Nananom Nsamanfo, the deities, the spirit forces that animate creation, that animate the sun, moon, stars, earth, mother, oceans, rivers, winds, and so forth, the spirits that animate these different features of creation. This is as the same sun that shone on our people thousands of years ago and invigorated our people thousands of years ago and invigorated plant life and so forth thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. It's the same sun that is shining on us and invigorating us today. The same earth mother that we walked upon thousands of years ago is the same earth mother that sustains us today. The same oceans that surround the earth and the water and so forth that invigorated our people and purified our people and cleansed our people thousands of years ago is the ocean that we are interfacing with today. The same atmosphere that invigorates us and enlivens us and animates us, the energy of the atmosphere, the jet stream and so forth, the same atmosphere surrounding the planet that dealt with our people, of course, we interface with and drew life from, animating force from thousands of years ago. The same spirit that animates the sun, that possessed our people thousands of years ago, are the same spirits that are animating the sun today, that possess our people today and communicate with us through spirit possession, Akwamu, and spirit communication. The same spirits that animate the earth, Afurakaitu and Asasiya, the earth mother divinity, the fertile earth mother and the stern, barren earth mother, Asasiyafu and Asasiya and Akhan. They're called Asase Nebet Hetepet and Asase Nebet Pet in ancient Kemet. They're called Onile and Yewa in the Yoruba tradition, the same earth mother divinities that dealt with us, that we interface with thousands of years ago, that animate the physical aspect of earth, are the same earth mother divinities we deal with today. So the same forces in nature possess our people, communicate with our people, guide our people, admonish us when we engage in disordered activity, and support us when we engage in harmonious activity. So their power, the forces in nature that animate us, empower us, and so forth, they support what is within our kra, our soul, our divine consciousness, in our spiritual head. So you see the abosom, the forces in nature, orisha, voodoo, and so forth, ntorotu, misnomer, neteru, netetu, on the bottom right-hand corner. Bottom left-hand corner, the nananom nsamanfo, the egungun, the kuvito, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circle. They guide us as to the use of that power that we're given by the abosom, guide us on how to utilize that power based on our spiritual anatomy, based on our ancestry. Just like different animals require oxygen. We require oxygen. Other animals require oxygen. They require the same energy, the same substance that they need to operate and function harmoniously. They need that just like we need. But because we have a different ancestry, we have a different species, we have a different form, the way we take in oxygen and utilize that resource in nature is different based on our physiological makeup. So a fish needs water, a fish also needs oxygen. A human being needs water, Afuraitkaitnut human being needs water, but we also need oxygen. If we try to take in oxygen or utilize water the same way the fish does, irrespective of our descent, our ancestral descent, the nature of our form, and we try to imitate the fish and breathe underwater, of course, we will die. And if the fish tried to breathe outside of water or take in oxygen outside of water the same way we do, irrespective of their instinct to operate according to their nature, to their form, to their ancestry, then they would die as well. So we need the same energy of the same forces in nature, plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afuraitkaitnut, human life. We are impacted by the same forces in nature, the same energy that streams from these forces in nature. Black substance of space, sun, moon, stars, planets, oceans, rivers, earth mother, atmosphere, the energy of these different forces in nature we must utilize, but based on our ancestry, the way we take that energy in and utilize it to its best effect is determined by our ancestry. The same is true of different Afuraitkaitnut groups. Just like in your own family, you may have one child that can eat certain foods like certain kinds of nuts or grains, and you have another child who is allergic to that. Those allergens must be observed, or else the other child will become ill. They need the same nutrients to grow and be strong, but you have to observe which one can take in those nutrients in a certain way, and the other child must get the same nutrients from a different source. The same is true of Afuraitkaitnut people of different ethnic groups. We have migrated to different regions of Earth, taken in foods and animal life as well from these different regions that has been incorporated within our blood circle. There are certain dietary taboos we've developed moving to different parts of the world. There are certain social taboos that we have developed moving to different parts of the world, certain ways that we take in energy, certain ways that we take in foods and so forth. And because we have blended our blood circles in a specific fashion, that there are certain dietary taboos, certain social taboos, certain spiritual taboos that different groups have according to their group, based on their history, based on their migrations, based on their ancestral blood circle. So the way one Afuraitkaitnut group takes in the energy of the Abosom will be slightly different than the way another Afuraitkaitnut group takes in the energy of the Abosom. Those who live near a riverine area will take on the energy in a different way. Those who live in a desert region, they will take on energy and incorporate it in their own fashion. Those who live near mountainous regions or savanna regions or in a forest belt, they will take in energy in a different fashion. It will even manifest in their phenotype, will manifest in their morphological structure. People living in areas in the forest, the Twa people, the Ba and Ka people, the short-statured, quote-unquote, pygmy-type people, people getting out into the grasslands and the large savanna grasslands and so forth. The people are much taller. The proteins that they are taking in cause them to grow bigger and so forth. So you have very tall, slender people in the Afuraitkaitnut world community, but then you have very small, short-statured people. You also have people in the middle range and so forth. Different regions of Earth, taking in different foods, interfacing with different animal life, plant life, mineral life, and so forth. That affects our physiology, but that also affects the way we operate. So when we deal with our NHOMA, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, they guide us in a harmonious way on the use of the energy that we're given from the Abosom, based on our clan, based on our descent, based on our migration, because they lived in harmony with divine order. That class of ancestors and ancestors who lived in harmony with divine order, they know the best means by which you, from that specific clan, are able to take in the energy of the Abosom and use it to its great effect to execute your function in creation. So you look on the bottom right and left corners of this triangle, you have the Abosom and the NHOMA, the deities and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. They give you the power, the Abosom, the deities, and the guidance, the Nananome Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors, of how to use that power. And those two corners are the base or the foundation which support the Akra, the spiritual head of the individual. They support us. When we execute our functioning creation, which is written into our soul, our divine consciousness, that divine function we have to execute in the world, what kind of cell in the great divine body of the Supreme Being, AMANNE and AMEN, or Nyame, the great mother, great father, what kind of cell within the great divine body are we? When we find out what kind of cell we are, that determines what kind of function we have to execute in the body. Just like every cell in your body has a function, the heart cells have their own function, immune system cells have their own function, liver cells have their own function. We are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, and we have a specific function based on the specific organ or deity that we are cellular components. That is written into our spiritual head, our Okra, our soul, divine consciousness, the Ka, the Kayet. So when we attune to that, then we live in harmony with order. The Abosom and Nsamanfo, as you see at the bottom right and left-hand corners of that triangle, support the apex. They support what's in the head, what's in the spiritual head, what's in the Okra, the divine function. When we get out of harmony with that function, then we learn from the Abosom and Nsamanfo the best way to realign ourselves with order, and this is what ancestral religion is. But when you go further down, you'll see we have another Ahinasa that's very similar, but the difference is the bottom right-hand corner is Nanasom, ancestral religion. The bottom left-hand left-hand corner is Amamre, ancestral culture, in the same position where the ancestral spirits are. Nanasom is the ancestral religion, same position where the deities are. And then Amansem, that is nation building, restoration, the same position of the Okra. So we call that the Ahinasa, or triangles of Ahofadi, or liberation. That is the nation's Ahinasa, or the nation's triangle. Individually, the Abosom and Nsamanfo, the bottom right and left hand corners of your triangle, supporting what's in your head. As a nation, as an Oman, and specifically as ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation of Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere, it is ancestral religion, animated by the Abosom, ancestral culture, animated by the ancestresses and ancestors, the Nananome Nsamanfo. Religion and culture are the foundation for Amansem, which is at the apex, which is nation building, restoration. And just as in the above triangle, we have Obra, the divine living energy, which is at the center that fills up the entire space of the triangle. In this one, actually, you will have AMANNE, which is culture, tradition, talking about nationism, the things of the nation. So when you see those two triangles, you see what governs us. How the Abosom and Nsamanfo support our function in the world, how the Abosom and Nsamanfo through ancestral religion and culture support nationhood, the way the nation should operate in the world, and nation building, restoration. When we talk about our three different conferences of the year, you have one of the bottom corners of that triangle is that Kudumain conference dealing with that culture. Then you have the Echisign conference, corner of the triangle, the Ahinasa, dealing with ancestral religion. And then the apex, which is June 24th this year, around the summer solstice, the highest point in the sky, the most vigorous energy emitted by the sun. This is where we have the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE conference. And this is what we're going to deal with tonight. We're dealing with AMANNE, Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. So let's get into that information. We'll put the link in the chat room for the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE page. And we just posted the page up recently. We just posted the information. Put that in the chat room for you. And it's ODWIRAMAN_AFAHYE.html. All right. And when you go to that page, you can download the flyer. And first we talk about the term ODWIRAMAN. Jida in the language of ancient Kemet means purification. It also means to cleanse, to purify, and to celebrate a ceremony of purification. We can understand the vocalization of the term Jida, T-W-R-A or D-W-R-A, Jida, because in the Akhan language we have the same term, Jida, which means purification. It also means a celebration of purification. That celebration of purification is our 7-day New Year celebration, which is called Ojida in various parts of Akhan culture on the continent, as well as here in North America. We celebrate our 7-day Ojida or New Year celebration that we call Obrajida NaNoMSOM, and we have information on our webpage about that. So Jida means purification, also a celebration of purification. Then we have the term Manu in ancient Kemet. It means a city, town, a nation, a polity. Mine also means land of the setting sun, the west. You'll find that in the Akhan language, Omain means nation. Mine also means a space or place abroad. And when we're talking about a country abroad, we're talking about the land of the setting sun. The same two terms, Jida and Mine, means purified, purification, and Mine meaning nation, but also land of the setting sun, the nation abroad. This is our designation for Afuraitkaitnut people, African black people in the Western Hemisphere. We are the purified nation, ODWIRAMAN, the purified nation in the Western Hemisphere, in the land or country abroad, the land of the setting sun, the extreme west of Afuraitkaitnut. We are purified because we were separated from the continent, but we maintained our ancestral religious traditions. Because we maintained our traditions, we kept ourselves pure so we could wage war against the whites and their offspring, massacre the whites and their offspring, and free ourselves from enslavement and end enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. And we dealt with that subject in detail on numerous broadcasts, showing that those who maintain their ancestral religious practices are those who wage war against the whites and their offspring and are responsible for our people being free from enslavement today. What we are moving forward towards is the completion of that process. We can look at divisions of our true history since we've been in the Western Hemisphere over the past few hundred years. Of course, we came here thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. That was one phase of our true history. But then our people being brought over here during the Musuo Ketie, the Great Diversity, the enslavement era a few hundred years ago. We look at that time frame. The worst condition that we were in was in physical enslavement. During that time of physical enslavement, those who maintained their ancestral religious traditions, practices, were guided and empowered by the Abosom on the best means to wage war against the whites and their offspring, massacre them, and force the end of enslavement and force the acceptance of emancipation. That freed us from the physical aspect of enslavement. And many of our people who were engaged in real practice, ancestral religion, culture, and so forth, began to have independent black towns, independent black cities, independent sovereign nations right here in the Western Hemisphere that lasted during the enslavement process, but they were free, and they freed themselves and defended their independent nations, even when the whites and offspring sent militias to try to destroy those nations, just like the United States Army waged war against the collection of Afuraitkaitnut people called the Gullah people. The entire United States Army waging war against the Gullah people. The Gullah wars against the United States Army bankrupted the United States government and so forth. They fought the Gullah for decades and never drugged them back into enslavement. We killed over nearly 2,000 of their soldiers. So, this is what was going on. Our people who waged war against the whites and their offspring, and that's true also in the Caribbean and South America and Central America, those who maintained their ancestral religious traditions, Maroons and so forth, waged war against the whites and their offspring and freed themselves and forced an end to enslavement. Here in North America, we forced the whites and their offspring into civil war. We forced them into emancipation because we were waging war against them. So, our people being free from physical enslavement is a direct result of the labors of those ancestresses and ancestors who practiced ancestral religion and forced the wars that led to our freedom and liberation. That was in that phase over the past few hundred years of physical enslavement. Ancestral religion is responsible for the freedom from physical enslavement. Now, this phase of existence since then, of course, there's been economic enslavement, political control, socialization in a negative fashion to control the minds of our people and enslave us mentally, economically, politically, and so forth. Even when they don't have physical chains on the bodies of our people, but when you have chains on the minds, the brains of the people, then you're controlling the people. It was ancestral religion which empowered and guided us to wage war against the whites and offspring and free us from physical enslavement, to reestablish our independence and sovereignty, and the defense of that sovereignty absolute during the physical phase of enslavement. And just as we did that in the past, today we need to complete the process and engage ancestral religious practices to attune to the forces in nature so that we can empower ourselves, so that we can be guided on the best use of our power to overcome our enemies and reestablish our sovereignty, defend our sovereignty, reestablish our nation, ODWIRAMAN, secure, independent on our own territory on the continent of Afuraitkaitnut, as well as in the Western Hemisphere. Some of our people will establish independence in our own nation on the continent. Some will establish independence in our own nation in the Western Sphere. We will have both options rooted in our ancestral culture. We need to complete that process. So this is what we're dealing with. This is what the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE conference is dealing with. We talked about what ODWIRAMAN means. AFAHYE in the Akhan language means a celebration, a festival. But when you look at the term, fa means to grasp, it means to take, but it also means a festival. It can mean a feast, but also a festival, that which is taken in. So when you feast, of course, you take in food. Fa means to grasp. It means to grasp physically, but it also means to grasp intellectually, spiritually, and so forth. So you look at the term fa meaning to grasp, but fa also means to feast and take in a feast and so forth. When you look in the language of ancient Kemet, you will see that the term fa means to grasp, to take, to lift up. And you'll see the midut, or the hieroglyph of the individual taking a vessel and often placing that vessel upon the head, but it means to grasp. So when we say in Akhan, fa meaning to grasp, it means that in ancient Kemet as well, and the symbolism shows that. To grasp physically, to take physically, but also to take spiritually, to take mentally, to take in something mentally, to grasp a concept, grasp an idea. Fa meaning to grasp. She meaning to enact or to make something happen, to appoint, to establish, to fulfill, and so forth. So afashe means to enact the grasping, the taking in, whether it's taking in food in a feast or taking in knowledge or wisdom, an idea or an activity of the group. So when we say shefa, to enact fa, or enact a festival, enact a grasping or taking in, afashe, a festival, we're talking about, we're taking out time, setting aside a period, setting aside a day or a series of days to grasp, to take in something so that we can utilize it, just like you take in food and utilize the food that you take in to empower yourself and fuel yourself so you can execute your function in the world. We receive information and we grasp it and we take it in and we utilize that, we share, we enact it, we enact what we have taken in and exercise what we have taken in, implement what we have taken in. This is what Afashe is talking about. So ODWIRAMAN Afashe is the ODWIRAMAN festival or conference. It is a conference of the Purified Nation, ODWIRAMAN Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere. The focus is AMANNE, Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. So we just released a trailer for the conference, and we go into some detail about what we're talking about with regard to nationism, the purification of nationalism. When we talk about nationism from an Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut concept, we talk about the term AMANNE, meaning nation. We show that in the flyer. We show the Medutu spelling out the term mine. Mine means mine, or mane means nature, kind, or manner. That's in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet. Mine meaning nature, kind, or manner. This is why in the Akhan language, AMANNE means the nature of the kinds of activities of the nation. The ne, or ne, the thing of the AMANNE, the nation. The culture, the customs, the traditions, the ways of the nation, of the AMANNE, the nature, kind, or manner. The root mine also means to establish, to fortify regularly, consecutively. It means something that is firm, abiding, stable, has staying power. The term from monuments, the lasting monuments of ancient Kemet, the colossal monument is also mine. When we talk about a mine, a nation is an entity. A nation, in the spiritual sense, is a living entity, a living, breathing entity. Just like you are a living, breathing entity, and you are made up of a number of different organs, and the organs constituted by cells and so forth. A nation is a living, breathing entity with its own spirit. And we are the cells within that nation, within that entity. And we share in that spirit. So when you have a properly formed, naturally formed nation, a coalescing of specific cells that function in harmony with one another, interdependent upon one another, they have been guided to coalesce by the abosom, by the Nanonoman Samafo, ultimately by Inyame, the Supreme Being. When those cells naturally are pushed and drawn to coalesce together as a unit, that is a quote-unquote Oman, or a nation, an organic entity with its own spirit, divinities that govern that nation. And when we're naturally drawn to blend blood circles, ancestral blood circles, and we form a coalition and we coalesce together, guided by the abosom, guided by Inyamewa and Inyame, then we're a unit. We're a body. We're a natural organic entity governed by a specific abosom, just like the liver is an entity. All of the cells within the liver are governed by the liver entity. The cells have their own lives. They live and die within that organ. They are organelles of that larger organ. They have their own lives, but their lives are interdependent upon one another, and they are supported and function according to the organ that they are a component part. We as cells that naturally coalesce together, when we're directed by the abosom, the erasure, the vodou, to naturally coalesce, and of course it's Afurakanu people only, we come together and form a unit. The abosom that directed us to come together, unification. So we form an Oman. We form a nation. We are an organic, living entity, a living, breathing entity. Just like the cells are part of that living, breathing entity, governed by an abosom, governed by an organ, and also governed by the ancestresses and ancestors, the ancestral community who brought that being, that coalition into being. So we're a living, breathing entity, just like a cell. We show an image of a fertilized egg. A zygote is a living, breathing entity, and it begins to split. Mitosis takes place. It becomes a number of different cells and so forth, all working together. So when we look at that in its real sense, and we look at the real constitution of an Oman, a nation, then you must understand if you're governed by specific abosom forces in nature, when you align with the forces in nature that govern you, then you execute your function harmoniously. Then you have a contribution that you can give to the nation because you know what your function is. Just like every cell in your body, when they act according to their nature, according to the organ or organ system of which they are a component part, and they execute their function properly, they understand instinctively their value, understand their worth within the body because it's defined by the function that they were given and the specific organ or organ system that they are part of, is reflective of that function, where they execute that function instinctively, then they make a positive contribution to the body, a positive contribution to the organ or organ systems they are a part of, but a positive, harmonious contribution to the body. If they didn't know what their function was and they just thought that they're just cells, body cells, and they're not part of an organ, and they don't want to put themselves in any kind of restrictive social or ethnic box, and they just want to say, I'm just a body cell, and engage in pan-bodyism. I'm just part of all of the cells in the body, so I'm a pan-bodyist, I'm a pan-cellulus, or a pan-body cellulus, and so forth. Then I'm just a cell in the body. So they don't know what their function is, and they would just operate in a destructive fashion. That's when you become cancer. Some of our people who've embraced white culture, that has bled into their politics. So they embrace white culture. They've rejected their own ancestral culture. They don't know who they are, but then they take on that lack of knowledge of who they are as an identity. So they will say, I don't know where I come from in Africa, so therefore I just claim the whole continent, and I'm a Pan-African, and I'm not part of any group, and I'm not part of any kind of tribalism, because tribalism is what got us in this negative situation in the first place. So we just need to forget who we are and call ourselves Pan-African. That is a self-destructive idea actually planted within our people by the whites and their offspring. They wanted to obliterate our knowledge of who we are, especially when we have people who are immune system cells and their function is to execute that immune system function and lymphatic function within the great divine body, meaning they are to kill and destroy the cancerous cells within the body, which are the whites and their offspring. We have other individuals who are cells or children of different divinities that support that kind of activity. So when you don't know what your function is, you become cancerous. You become wayward. You just become aimless within the body. When we don't know what our function is as Afuraitkaitnut people, because we don't recognize we are part of a living, breathing entity as a natural Oman, a nation, we don't know what our value is. We don't know what our worth is. And therefore, we don't know how to operate in a harmonious way. We don't know how to operate interdependently and interface with one another in a harmonious way because nobody knows who they are. A bunch of cells bumping into one another, creating disorder within the body, disease within the body, and we wonder why the little cancerous, weak cells are in control. When you lower your resistance and your immunity becomes compromised, then bacteria that enters into the body and toxins that enter into the body that normally your immune system destroys easily without effort, without you even thinking about it, when you compromise your immunity, those weak viral cells can take you down. And then you become ill and become bedridden and so forth. But when you increase your immunity and destroy those viral cells and cancer cells and so forth, they're destroyed on a regular basis because you increased your immunity, you restored your immunity. It's no longer compromised. And when it's no longer compromised, then the cells in the body can operate in a harmonious fashion the way they are designed. This is the spiritual, cosmological foundation of what it means to be an Oman, a nation. And the things, nde, adie or nde, the things, nde, of the Oman is Omanne or Omannie, as is said in Akhan, Omanne, as you see in the Coptic variation in the language of ancient Kemet, in the Medutu, talking about the custom, the tradition, the nature of the people, the nature of the nation, the customs, the nature, the kind of the nation, the things of the nation. This is nationism in reality. So we utilize that terminology if you translate it in English, not just the things of the nation or the customs, but it's nationism. Nationism rooted in our direct cosmological knowledge of us being cells, part of a greater organs, part of a greater divine body. The nation itself is a living entity with its own spirit. We are cells that are part of that living entity. We're connected to that spirit. This is why different nations have their own character. You have the Akhan nation, Yoruba nation, Ebe nation, Fon nation, and so forth. When they naturally coalesce, they have a certain kind of character. They say the Yoruba people act this way, the Akhan people act this way, the Fon people act this way. We're all very similar, but we have our own nature and character because we have blended blood circles, because we're governed by certain ancestresses and ancestors that have continuously reincarnated through these blood circles. we're governed by specific abosom, and we interface with them in a specific manner. So the individuals themselves have their own character. Families have their own character. Clans have their own character. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, ethnic groups have their own character, and a collection of ethnic groups that interface with one another in a harmonious fashion, naturally drawn to interface with one another in a coalition, then that becomes an Oman, a nation, and that nation is governed by specific abosom, and the way they deal with the members of that nation is in a specific way. And so that nation of people, even though they're different ethnicities, they come together, just like the different organs in your body are different, quote-unquote, ethnicities, but they function together harmoniously in the body. So the different ethnicities, Akhan, Yoruba, Ebe, Fon, Igbo, and so forth, we maintain our specific identities, just like every organ in your body maintains a specific identity, but they work together to serve the whole body. So you have these different ethnicities that maintain their own character, but then when they come together in a coalition in a certain region of the Earth Mother and interface with Asase Afur, the Earth Mother, the fertile Earth Mother, in a specific region, that coalition of cells develops a specific character based on their interfacing with Asase Afur, the Earth Mother in that region, as well as Asase Ya, barren Earth Mother, the stern, protective Earth Mother, and so forth. We have Asase Afur and Asase Ya. So therefore, that interfacing with that region of the Earth Mother and the blending of blood circles in that region, and the way we interface with the abosom based on the interfaces with Asase Afur and Asase Ya in that region, that determines that natural and national identity. We're talking about nationism from a purified perspective. When we understand that, we're talking about nationism that is the purification of nationalism. Nationalism, just people saying we just need to form a collective group and move in a certain direction. When we talk about nationism, we're talking about nationalism from a real perspective, a rooted perspective founded in our cosmology, founded in our divine function that we were sent into the world to execute by Inyamewa and Inyame. This is the difference between nationism as we have coined the definition of that term. The whites in our spring will use nationism in a different capacity. We give the proper definition of what nationism is. And this is why when we talk about nationism or AMANNE, being the purification of nationalism, we're moving back into a new, quote-unquote, old direction, a new, old paradigm, the proper understanding of the forming of a nation, how we are to operate as a nation, rooted in our spirit genetic identity, rooted in the blending of ancestral blood circles on a specific region of Asase Afur, the Earth Mother, and the coalescing of those groups together to form a specific identity governed by specific ancestral spirits and specific abosom, and therefore we move in a specific fashion. This is naturally what occurred when our people maintained their ancestral religious practices, waged war against the whites in Narrow Spring, freed themselves, defeated the whites in Narrow Spring, and formed independent cities, independent towns, independent nations secure in their sovereignty. And they work in harmony with one another. If you become stripped on the surface of your culture, you don't know how to function, you're given a false identity, and you don't know who you truly are, then you begin to try to incorporate all kinds of ideas and self-destructive practices of the whites in our spring. You try to blacken them up, call it Pan-African, and then try to move forward in a disjointed, rudderless motion. You're trying to engage life, trying to engage national identity without a knowledge of who you actually are. That's like cells in the body who've been disconnected from the organs and organ systems that they are naturally a part of and trying to formulate a collective. What happens when cells disconnected with the organs and organ systems that they are naturally a component part of? What happens when they disconnect from them and then form a coalition to live within the body? That's called cancer, because they begin to be destructive. And we fall into a cancerous kind of life, a cancerous kind of existence, when we reject the abosom that govern us, reject our divine function, and try to coalesce based on what we learn from the whites in our spring and try to blacken that up. So this is what has been happening over the past 100 plus years. We talk about the difference between secular nationalism, not grounded in any cosmology, function, the divine function of who we are. We talk, which is an imitation of the white Nile Spring, which is self-destructive. We talk about a messianic nationalism, where our people have embraced the foolishness of the Bible, Quran, Talmud, and other fake religions with their fictional cartoon characters, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, and so forth. So you have the quote-unquote preacher who's going to lead the masses to the promised land, a messianic nationalist approach, which is self-destructive. Then we talk about an amorphous nationalism, a rudderless Pan-Africanism. An amorphous nationalism where you don't understand who you are, you don't understand what your identity is, you don't understand the interdependence you have with one another based on your functioning creation. You don't understand that you're specific cells that coalesce into a unit under the direction of the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, and how to interface harmoniously. You don't understand that, so you're just engaged in an amorphous nationalism with no form, no function, a rudderless Pan-Africanism, rejecting your identity, embracing an abstract identity, and moving forward basically Eurocentric or white nationalism in blackface. It was doomed from the start because our people had embraced white culture from the beginning and sought to make that work. It's like blackening up Christianity, which is self-destructive because Jesus never existed of any color. It's like trying to blacken up Islam, yet Muhammad never existed. Allah is a fictional cartoon character. Trying to blacken up Judaism, Moses, Aaron, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, none of these characters ever existed of any color, any race. Yahweh never existed either. We go into detail about that in Kukutuntun. We can also move forward and try to blacken up atheism, blacken up secular nationalism, blacken up messianic nationalism, try to blacken up nationalism, white nationalism, and make it black nationalism, and only focus on economics and, politics and socialization and so forth. Talking about our economic philosophies and political ideologies and so forth and saying that's black nationalism, we repeated that ad nauseum. But that's based on not knowing who we are. It was a naive approach from the beginning. Our people have been engaged in that for over 100 years. It has not borne any fruit. And it was not able to bear any fruit from the beginning because it was doomed from the beginning. We look at the model of those who were successful, not the model of those who have never been successful. You don't want to follow a model of a lack of success and try to build upon that lack of success. The only people who have been successful at what we have sought to achieve and we seek to achieve are our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors who established independent, sovereign nations right here in the Western Hemisphere, freeing themselves from enslavement by waging war against the white Nile Spring and freeing themselves when the white Nile Spring sought to attack their independent nations. They were met with our formidable armies, and the white Nile Spring began to try to engage in trade and commerce. For example, in Dismal Swamp in Virginia, South Carolina, and so forth, a couple of thousand Afuraitkaitnut people coalescing in that area, freeing themselves from enslavement, had a militia. So when the white Nile Spring came to Dismal Swamp to try to drag the people back into enslavement, they were met with a formidable army. So we had a nation. They call it Dismal Swamp. We had a nation, a couple of thousand people, raising children, grandchildren, growing food, procuring medicine, building homes, protecting, instituting educational programs and everything else to maintain the nation. Everything we needed, we supplied for ourselves. And when the white Nile Spring sought to take it down, we waged war against them, and they began to ask for peace treaties and sought to engage in trade with us. This is while enslavement is going on. Next door to enslavement, you have an independent sovereign nation, and that's just one example. And we have numerous of those examples in North America as well as in Central America, South America, of course. The Quilombos in South America are popular, known in true story. The Maroon settlements in Suriname amongst the Akhan, the Saramaka, and others, as well as the Maroon nations in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean are known in true story. But what's less known are those Maroon settlements and independent nations in North America. that we established based on the same principle. Those people were successful. They led armies. They led their functioning led to the end of enslavement. So if they can force the end of enslavement and establish independent nations in their lifetimes and defended them right here in the midst of enslavement in our worst condition, then they are the model that we follow to engage the same process in this new phase of our existence where it's not physical slavery 100%, even though there are jails and so forth, so that is physical enslavement. But it's not 100% of our people who are enslaved physically. It's primarily economic enslavement, pseudo-religious enslavement, socialization, which is the form of enslavement, the way we are socialized by the whites and offspring, but we embrace their false culture and so forth. All these different things. Of course, chemical and biological warfare being waged against our people, poisoning the foods, genetically modified foods, different medicines and so forth, all these different things that they use to enslave our people physically, physiologically, as well as spiritually, emotionally, everything else. Their perverse culture, their sexuality, homosexuality that they're promoting, all these different things designed to enslave our people. So just like we broke free from physical enslavement, which is the worst condition we've been in, rooted in our ancestral culture, we were able to break those bonds and establish our independence and sovereignty. We have the capacity, because we're descendant from those people who did affected that result. We're directly descendant of it. It's not abstract. It's not like, oh, you have the power to do whatever you want. We are directly descendant of the people who did that. But we have examples in our own blood circles of people who affected that result, meaning we have it within us not only to affect that result, but we have the obligation to affect that result, to reestablish ourselves fully independent, sovereign, secure in our sovereignty on our own territory in the Western Hemisphere, as well as on the continent. When we talk about on the continent, talking about not just moving to the continent and becoming part of a established country, but ultimately establishing our own nation. Not like the whites and their offspring artificially establishing Liberia or Sierra Leone. It was designed to create conflict between Afurakanu people here who would go back and migrate there and the native people of the region because of the way it was structured to create dissension amongst both groups. When we talk about carving out the space for our people to return to our own independent nation, established in a harmonious fashion, this is what we're talking about on the continent as well as in the Western Hemisphere. So, this is what we're dealing with regard to the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE, the Purified Nation Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere Conference-Festival that's happening June 24th. Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. So we just did, when you look at the flyer, you'll see we go into some detail about that. When you listen to the trailer that we just released, the movie trailer, little quote-unquote movie trailer, but it's basically a description of the conference, and we just released it. It's on YouTube as well as on Facebook. You can watch that trailer, and you'll see that we go into some detail talking about nationism, the purification of nationalism, and what ODWIRAMAN is. We are ODWIRAMANu, meaning the people of ODWIRAMAN. We are the purified nation. We will become identified as that, and we will identify ourselves as that. That means all Afuraitkaitnut people, African black people in the Western Hemisphere. Mine meaning nation, but mine also meaning land of the setting sun. And Jida, purification, we are purified, just like Alsar was purified and resurrected. It's like Alset purified herself to restore herself to the throne. Alsar and Alset in the West, Alsar becomes Kaniti Amintu, the first of the Westerners, the one who dies, goes to the West, the land of the setting sun, but then resurrects in a purified fashion. Alset is forced out of her throne of rulership. She's forced into the West, but then at the same time, she restores herself, and then Alsar and Alset reunite and so forth to rule once again. We're talking about the purified nation, ODWIRAMAN, in the Western Hemisphere, Man. So we become identified as that, and we begin to identify ourselves as that instead of saying Africans in the diaspora. And of course, diaspora is related to this whole Jewish myth, which never existed, of, the Jews being dispersed and so forth. There was no such thing as ancient Hebrews, whether black or white. They never existed. We go into detail about that in our book, The Kuku Tuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction. So that whole term diaspora is related to that pseudo-religious, pseudo-biblical, and Talmudic story that we do not deal with. But we call ourselves ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation of Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere. That includes our people who were enslaved in Europe as well, and freed themselves from enslavement in Europe as well. So the conference, June 24th, which is a Ptah, which is a Friday, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll have presenters, some presenters live, some presenters will be submitting video presentations dealing with different aspects of AMANNE, Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. We have Dr. Atifi is one of our presenters. She's a naturopathic physician. She's the owner of Nkingu Health. She's going to present on a holistic healthcare system and nationism. We have Njideka Karmo, the owner and guardian director of Odwirafo, Pan-African Educational Online Co-op Classes. She's been on our show before, so is Dr. Atifi Adiro. She will be presenting on a comprehensive educational system and nationism. As ODWIRAMAN, we need to have systems in place to serve every member of ODWIRAMAN, every member of the Afuraitkaitnut nation in the Western Hemisphere, the Purified Nation. So we need, when we talk about the 7 principal values of nation building, AMANSEM, methods of food production and preservation. Can't have a nation unless you can feed yourself. Methods of curing disease. You can't be dependent on the whites and offspring if you have your own independent nation, and we have our own methods of curing disease. Establishing a military structure to defend the nation. The 4th principal value is the institutionalization of values, establishing educational institutions, training institutions, cultural institutions, religious institutions, governmental institutions, and so forth. The institutionalizations of our values. Institutionalization of our values so we can transfer knowledge and also transfer the protocols that keep the nation in place and keep people recognizing the value of the nation, why it's valuable, why what we engage in is valuable, why the protocols that were put in place are valuable. So when people recognize the value of the nation, they will seek to perpetuate the nation and defend the nation, and they will defend the nation. So we must institutionalize our values through building institutions. The 5th principal value of AMANSEM nation building is establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence so we can govern ourselves in an amicable fashion. The 6th principal value is the establishment and building of homes on acquired land as well as territory. When we talk about nationism, not just farmland, but also a nation, a territory for ourselves. And then the 7th principal value is the manufacturing of clothing, of course, dealing with textiles and so forth. So when we talk about nationism and we talk about ourselves as ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation, we must have systems in place that serve every member of ODWIRAMAN. So we will be doing a presentation dealing with ODWIRAMAN and AMANNE, the Purified Nation, and Nationism, the Purification of Nationalism. Dr. Atifi Adiro will be dealing with a healthcare system and nationism. We must establish our own healthcare system for every member of ODWIRAMAN, which we are working on that. We must have an educational system that can serve every member of ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation, wherever we are, right where we are right now. We don't have time to wait for schools to be built. We can establish an educational system right now. And Njideka Karmo has established an educational system, an online educational system, which any member of the Afuraitkaitnut community, anywhere we are, can immediately access right where we are right now and begin to be educated. So we have the capacity to educate every Afuraitkaitnut man, woman, and child wherever they are right now. We need to establish our healthcare system for ODWIRAMAN so we can serve every Afuraitkaitnut man, woman, and child in ODWIRAMAN in the nation right where we are right now to be able to access holistic healthcare services from our own physicians, healers, herbalists, and so forth in a way that's supportive of them and, of course, supportive of the Oman. So and we're going to be confirming a couple more speakers, so you'll see this information on the flyer. We do have some vending spaces still available. They are first come, first serve. We have a few spaces left. You can go to the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE page, and you'll see the link to click on for the vendor registration application. We provide 1 6-foot table and 2 chairs for anybody who would like to vend, and of course, Afurakanu people only, and the kind of products that you'll be vending must be somehow related to ancestral religion, culture, nation building, and so forth. So you'll see that on the application. A vending space for the whole day is $30. And then we also, as we do with every event, whether it's a conference or just a presentation, when we do presentations around the country, as well as the conferences that we've had, of course, they are free and open to Afurakanu people only. But we are also giving away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who comes to the conference. We've done that at all of our conferences and our various presentations. So when we've gone to different places like Alabama or New York or Philly or Virginia, Delaware, wherever we have gone, Texas, we've given away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who came to the presentation. We'll be doing the same thing at this conference. The ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE book publication will be given free to every conferee. Part of that process, if you would like to take out an ad for your business, organization, or institution, or you just want to take out an ad in support of the work that we're doing and to send a message to the people, we'll have the book, we'll have a softcover version of the book, which will be published and released prior to the conference. We'll be giving away a softcover version of the book. We'll also sell the softcover version of the book. The ebook version of the book will be on our website as a free download, just like our other 20 books are on our website. We have published 20 books so far. Afuraitkaitnut, The Origin of the Term Africa, More Means Dead, Kokobo, which talks about bisexuality, homosexuality was never accepted in nature, Kemet, The Origin of the Term Yoga, Karakasa, The Origin and Nature of the Chakra. We have a number of different books that we have published. The Kukutuntum, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, proving that Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, fictional cartoon characters who never existed, as well as the Cosmological Foundation of Creation. All these various books we have on our website that we have published in-house publishing. We also print in-house. We do all of our publishing, writing, publishing, printing, and so forth in-house. We do not contract that out. The softcover versions of our books range between $8 and $11. The ebook versions of our books are all free. We make our books available free to the community online. For those people, some people do not have the funds to purchase, but they should not be precluded from accurate information about our culture. So the ebooks, that's just our process. We make all of the ebook versions of our books free downloads. The softcover versions of our books are the ones that we sell. The same is true for the new book that will be coming out on ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE, dealing with Nationism, Purification of Nationalism. That book will be given away for free at the conference, but it will also be online afterwards. The ebook will be free, but then the softcover versions, people will be able to purchase that. In the back of the book will be the list of the various vendors, their ads for their business, but then those of you who would like to place ads in the book as well, of course, they're full color. It's an 8.5 by 11 size, the same size, magazine type size book, large size. So we have ads for 1/4 page is $25, a half page is $35, and a full page is $50. So, and these are full color ads, of course. So if you would like to place an ad, of course, your ad will be, given to everybody who comes to the conference and people who purchase the book from this point on. They will see your business, organization, institution. And, of course, online, the ebook version online. We are getting close to 3 million hits this year. We're also already at nearly 2 million hits on our website this year. We're going to get up to about 3 million or more. So there will be millions of hits on the website, hundreds of thousands of views of the book online, including your ad that will be in the book and so forth. So if you would like to place an ad, whether it's just a supportive ad of the work that we are doing, or if you'd like to place your business, your organization, or your institution, study group, whatever it is, you'd like to place an ad in the journal, you can see that on the ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE page as well. $25 for a quarter-page ad, $35 for a half-page, and $50 for a full-page ad. On the same page, you'll see the link to the vending space and all of that. So one thing that we need to do, the JPEG files for the ad, you will email them, and you'll see that on the page. You email them to us at our Akwamuman at Odwirafo.com. Email address, we need those JPEG files sent as soon as possible because we need to have time to format the book and get it ready for printing and print and get everything ready so we can have the books ready to give away at the conference. And we have to account for potential delays, things that may come up. We can have a delay in shipments with regard to ink or a delay in something else. We don't want a delay to cause a problem where we don't have the physical books ready on the day of the conference. So we need those JPEG files for your ad as soon as possible. So you can go to the website now. You can click on the link below the section where the flyer, the images for the flyer is. You'll see the link for the ads and so forth. You can make the payment there, and you can also send us the JPEG file for your ad immediately. You can also check out and get the information, download the information for the vendor registration application. Right there. And if I didn't mention, we provide a 6-foot table and 2 chairs. We only have 10 vending spaces. One of them is a food vendor in Essi's Kitchen, which is raw vegan cuisine. But then we have other spaces as well, but those are, we have a couple of people already, so we only have a few spaces left. So if you would like to vend, you need to let us know right away, or go directly to the page right away. The table is $30 for the entire day. All right, so we're going to go to the phone line real quick, and if you have a question or comment in the chat room, let us know. Okay, Michelle on the phone line, number 9734. You had a question or a comment?
What's up, brother?
What's up?
Hello? What's up?
Yes.
I don't really have any questions, but I do have a short comment. Something I've realized from continual study and meditation. When you speak about provocation and how provocation is get like 2 separate poles, the evocation and invocation. What I have discovered, right, if we want to have, I think, a stronger relationship with the divinity, the Obosum, we have to put ourselves in positions where we provoke them. You know what I mean? Not so much just, sitting in front of the altar and receiving communication, but like, if I want to be more in tune with, Bena and Abena, then the individual, people within the nation, have to put themselves in a position where they provoke divinities to lead and guide them within the specific situation. And I think that's applicable for all the different, different phases, different parts of the nation, both in effort, the food preservation and the health and military structures, systems of governance, etc. Because if we look at our history, we say when we were in enslavement, probably most overt still, dealing with that, but the most overt form of enslavement, we didn't have the technology that we have now. the systems of communication that we have now. We didn't have the means that we do have now. And so we think about Haiti and how they revolted and how it led to their being sovereign. We use those examples, and we know that our ancestors and ancestors, they didn't do a whole lot of, it might be incorrect, but they didn't do a whole lot of talking to the point, but they initiated actions in which the ancestors answered the call. The Ogusun possessed the people, was give them the proper guidance. So that's like, my comment, and because that's something that's been revealed to me. We speak about, the efforts, and we speak about warfare, but ain't nobody doing it. We just talking, so we're not getting the systems that we're really supposed to have because we're not provoking the divinities. It's like like you said, if you push somebody, you're provoking them to and when you push somebody, they get off balance, so they have to restore their balance. So we're not provoking the divinities. And in my understanding, I can be incorrect because I'm young, so I'm still learning. And I know the elders are supposed to lead and guide us in whatever we do, being that they have the highest office within our society. So that's just one part of my comment, that we need to put ourselves in a position where we, provoke the divinities to give us the guidance within the situation. We learn while we are in it and we're experiencing it. You know what I mean? I can go on and on about that, I think. But my other comment is, being that, I'm Galagichi, and, speaking about, the Gala Wars and the land, et cetera, one thing about a lot of Galagichi people, we have our own land. We have, and Queen Kwesi has made great efforts to preserve the land that we do have on the sea islands like James Island, Johns Island, Watermalaw, St. Helena Island, that's just like in South Carolina. So the acquiring of land and building homes, we have the land, and it's really available. And I really speak about the land, not so much of other people within the nation getting the land, but one thing that a lot of people don't realize is one of the reasons why we were able to preserve the land is because of the mosquitoes. Europeans, back when Galagichi people were growing rice, because to grow rice you have to have a lot of water. It's going to have a lot of mosquitoes. So there's a certain time of the year, really around this time of the year, in the summer, where Europeans, Aakhuamuman, had to leave the coastal areas because of the mosquitoes. Even during the Civil War, the Aakhuamuman lost hundreds, and thousands of lives because of yellow fever and malaria from the mosquitoes. And African people, certain blood of African people have a natural immunity to the mosquitoes. Me growing up on one of the islands, we used to always come around and spray for the mosquitoes. That's something called mosquito control. And when they had the floods in South Carolina, one of the major issues that they had was the mosquitoes. So, and I learned from reading brother by Nehem in his book, The Healers. And one part of the book, he talked about how when some people in the motherland went to the novel, but one of the characters was talking about how that the forest itself kills the Europeans. They had a war tactic where they would just lead Europeans into the forest and it would kill. So that kind of goes back to, in the Galagichi corridor with Europeans and mosquitoes. So when we do, or whoever want to acquire land and they want to have a natural protection from the Aakhuamuman, the mosquito will be our aid. I know we got to do certain things to protect ourselves, mosquitoes as well, but historically, the mosquitoes has always been an enemy to the crop. You feel me? So those are my two comments. When we acquire land, the land that we should acquire. And when we do acquire land, if we do decide to acquire land in the Galagichi corridor, and we do link up with other families, it is property. It allows the land to always be available in the past from family member to family member. And like back to the first comment about provocation, we're going to have to start to put ourselves in position where we provoke the divinity to give us guidance in a specific situation as we build our nation. Feel me? That's all I got to say, big bro.
May I say, we appreciate that and that's absolutely true. The whites and their offspring recognized Odwirafo, the spirit of disorder. The whites and their offspring recognized that it was because of our provocation, as you said, putting ourselves in position to be receptive to the Abosom, receptive to the NHOMA and Samafo, receive the best guidance and the best means by which to wage war against the whites and their offspring and defend ourselves, find out where they where they were taking position so we could avoid that, find out what plant life and mineral life to procure, when to procure it, how to mix it so we can create weapons of warfare, chemical and biological weapons and so forth. So because we engaged those provocations, that we were able to wage war successfully, force the end of enslavement. So the whites and offspring were like, the only way we can stop these people is to convince them that they shouldn't be practicing ancestral religion. So slavery was over. They knew they couldn't continue with that because we began to kill them in large numbers. So the next phase was, let's introduce Christianity, white culture, start reconstruction, and let them get elected and become governors and, Congress people and everything else to brainwash our people into saying, well, maybe we're freed up now. Maybe things will be different. We don't need to practice our ancestral religion anymore. And that, of course, campaign has been going on for over 150 years, nearly 200 years. It was to lead us away from provocation and make us fear provocation, to despise provoking the Abosom and Samafo and so forth. So, yes, now our people are engaged in this process where we're intellectualizing nationalism and Pan-Africanism and everything else because we still fear or have some disdain for invoking the deities and evoking the ancestresses and ancestors. And as soon as that's brought up, brainwashed Negroes think that that's meaningless. We just need to focus on economics or something like that. They can't see the connection between ancestral religion and self-defense and freedom and liberation. So, yes, it's key. We have to engage those provocations. And in order for us to do that, we have to destroy this mindset that's been forced upon our people so that we are, freed up so we can go back and recognize the value of invoking the Abosom, evoking the Nsamako. So we have these broadcasts and publications and so forth to destroy the brainwashing. And once that brainwashing is destroyed, then the natural spirit of the person, is freed up, and that natural inclination we have towards provocation is fully manifest, fully blossomed and so forth. So we really appreciate that comment. And also with regard to the land and, yes, even mosquitoes and the smallest entity working together in a harmonious fashion can destroy these crackers. So, but yes, the Gullah Geechee Island, the whole corridor, there are many groups that comprise with the Gola and Nkisi people, but also you have people, some Asante and other Akhan groups and some from the Congo and so forth, Yoruba. So we have ties to that area. When we talk about establishing a territory on the continent, independent sovereign territory on the continent, as well as in the Western Hemisphere, so we have both West and East independent nations, sister, brother nations, and so forth, independent territories. That includes that consideration of portions of the Gullah Geechee corridor as well, which should be sovereign in and of themselves. So we appreciate that. Appreciate the comment.
What's up?
What's up? All right. Okay, so we're just checking the chat room real quick before we end the broadcast. And again, this is the inaugural AMANSEM Affairs of the Nation broadcast, as we said earlier, for people who came in a little bit later. We typically have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. Akhan or Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion on Joda Monday night. Ojira, which means purification, on Tuesday nights, Benada, dealing with ancestral religion in general and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. Igua Marketplace on Wednesday nights, showcasing Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut businesses, organizations, and institutions. as well as highlighting one business, organization, or institution per week for our process of starving the beast and feeding the pride, the Akhan economic development model. So we direct people to support that business, organization, or institution per week, reallocating resources from the White Nile Spring to that business, organization, or institution on a weekly basis, a different business, organization, or institution per week. And then the new broadcast, AMANSEM, Affairs of the Nation, and we'll be dealing with different aspects of AMANNE Nationism and how they impact every aspect of our lives, different issues that are arising within ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation of Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere, the news or the affairs of the nation, what's going on with us right here, and how we need to resolve those current issues in real time. So we'll be dealing with that on Yada Abada, Thursday night for AMANSEM, the Affairs of the Nation. So 4 broadcasts. There's some weeks that we will have live broadcasts. Sometimes we will have pre-recorded podcasts. So we'll always send out a notification for that to let you know what's going on. You can connect with us on Facebook, Odwirafo on Facebook, or Kwesi Akhan on Facebook, Odwirafo on YouTube, Odwirafo, of course, on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow us on the Blog Talk Radio page, and when you click the follow button on our page on the Facebook page, on the Blog Talk Radio page, when you click the follow button, then you will be on the email list. So every time we send out a new notification, you'll automatically be notified about the broadcasts that are coming up. So please, even right now, you can go to the Odwirafo channel page on Blog Talk Radio and click the follow button. We also have all of our previous 225 broadcast archives on the channel page. You can download them and listen to them at any time. Many of them we have also saved, over 100 of them we have also saved as YouTube videos. So when you go to our YouTube page, you can download those videos to listen. But then we also have other videos as well from previously when we broadcasted on Ustream, as well as our Ma'al webcast from prior to that. So all of those are on the YouTube page as well. We have a couple of hundred videos on the YouTube page as well, so you can check that out. We have our Ning site, which is our own separate network, own social media network that's private, that we pay for, that you can join, Afuraitkaitnut.com, Ning.com. So when you go to our regular website, you'll see the link for that. So you can connect with us there. You can create a profile, post blogs and discussions and videos, and it's very similar to Facebook, except it's our own separate social media network. We need to have our own networks outside of Facebook and outside of other social media networks. They shut those things down, shut down pages whenever people promote, cultural and real information. So we need to have another option as well outside of those controlled networks for our own people. So we have hundreds of people who are part of the Afuraitkaitnut, Nationism, Ancestral Religion Network, and so forth. So you can join that. But again, we will be having our conference on June 24th. If you would like to place an ad in the journal, please do so as soon as possible and send that JPEG file as soon as possible. As we said earlier, we have published 20 books to date. All of the books are on the publications page on our website. They range between $8 and $11. If you order the first 5 books, which is the NHOMA and NHOMA, the first 5 books are really foundational, and they're foundational to the other 15. The first 5 books is 20% off, so the first 5 books is $40 for the first 5 books. We also have a discount of 30% off for any order of 10 books or more. So sometimes people order the first 10 books in the set. That's $66 for 10 books. Or 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to the entire 20-book set is automatically 30% off. So, for example, the whole 20-book set is $125 for 20 books. That's 30% off. But any order, whether you order 1 book, $8, $9, $10, or $11, Most of them are $9 or $10. Any order of 5 books is 20% off. Any order of 10 books or more is 30% off. So you can go to our page. You can check that out. We also have our Odwirafo option, distributor option. This is one of the programs that we have instituted in ODWIRAMAN and specifically within the Akwamu Nation in North America, Aakhuamuman, Amaruka, Atifi. Any of our people who would like to become self-employed entrepreneurs, you can engage that process immediately wherever you are, right where you are right now. We have 20 books, and of course, in a couple of weeks, we'll have 21 with the new ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE. You can sell those books. The distributor price is 35% off of the regular resale price, and therefore you purchase them for 35% off, and then you sell them for full price. So, of course, if, for example, you purchased the Kuku Tuntum, you bought a number of those books, so you can sell them. They retail for $10. You buy it for $6.50, and you sell it for $10. So you make $3.50 per book. And of course, when people see the books and see, for example, Kuku Tuntum, on the front cover it says Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, these various characters. Allah, Yahweh never existed. The books sell themselves when people see the covers and flip through them. So you can sell them very quickly and then reorder and so forth. You can become a distributor, notwithstanding your prior work history. You can begin that process immediately. When we talk about economic development and we talk about nation building, AMANSEM nation restoration, we should have an option for every member of ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation in the Western Hemisphere. We should have the option of economic development, an option for people to be able to employ themselves immediately, not having to be dependent on the whites and their offspring. If we're talking about being a nation, we need to have numerous methods whereby people can begin to generate income. This is one of those methods that we put in place so that all of our men and women have the opportunity to begin to engage in entrepreneurial activity immediately. So that's on the publications page where you see all the 20 books. Further down on the page, you'll see the Odwirafo distributor option as well. So you can get all that information there. So whether you purchase some books for yourself or purchase some so you can sell and generate income, all of that is on the publications page. We also have our fundraiser, Akhan for our institution. We are raising funds to establish a physical space, permanent physical space for our institution so that we can expand our class offerings as well as do our presentations, conferences, broadcasts, and the publishing arm. And with the publishing arm, there will be employment opportunities for those for printing and shipping and so forth to work within the institution. We do all of our publishing, printing, shipping, and so forth in-house. We don't contract that out. So we do all of that ourselves, copy, printing, publishing, all of that. So there will be employment opportunities there in addition to the what we already have, the entrepreneurial program, or option. But we'll expand our classes, our broadcasts, our workshops. We have the Odwirama Afurakanu Manhood workshop based on our book, Odwirama Afurakanu Manhood. We have the Akuma Substance Abuse Abstinence in the Afuraitkaitnut Community Workshop. We have Akuma Dine and Akuma Tra, dealing with overcoming domestic abuse and trauma, recovery, alignment, overcoming the negative effects of intergenerational transcarnational trauma so people can move forward in their lives. All these different things. We have these workshops. They're all free. We have the Sankofa Juma training social services, human services professionals on how to incorporate culture within their therapeutic interventions with their consumers, their clients. So all these workshops we will have at the center. We'll be able to expand our classes on a weekly basis, as well as the presentations that we do. We give away free books. As we said, at every event, we've given away over 860 books to people all across the country, free books and so forth. We want to keep that going. So if you support the work that we are doing, including the broadcasts and the publications and the free events and so forth, you can go to our fundraiser page for Akhan. Any any contribution of $15 or more gives you the option of receiving one or more of our books in return for your donation. We just put the link in the chat room. So that allows us to continue to have these free conferences, free presentations, give away free books, to empower our community, and so forth. So, and we would like to, establish that physical space as soon as possible. We would like to open that center up this year. It would be an educational center within the community. It will also be a space that will facilitate some Afuraitkaitnut homeschooling activities as well. So it will be a center for ODWIRAMAN, Purified Nation of Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere. So we're working to establish that so that we can continue the work that we're already doing with Akwamu, with our institution. All the books that we publish are born of the institution. The entrepreneurial program is born of the institution. The free conferences are born of the institution. The workshops that we do are born of the institution. So we're doing the work already. And we have a physical center for the institution that will simply allow us to expand the work and reach more people. People can come out to the physical space as well as live stream classes and so forth. So, and we can expand our entrepreneurial program with more activities and so forth. So a number of different things. And yet I'll say to those who have contributed already, so you can go to the fundraiser page for that. And any contribution, of course, not only goes towards that physical space of establishing the center, but also assist with us, for example, flying out and contributing to the travel expenses for some of our presenters who will come from out of state to present at this conference, which is, of course, free to the Afuraitkaitnut community, just the various things that we're doing. So if you'd like to support the work, and if you do support the work we're doing, please go to the fundraiser page, and any amount is welcome. Any contribution of $15 or more gives you the option, again, of receiving one or more of our books in return for your donation. So, yet I say we thank you for tuning in to this inaugural broadcast of AMANSEM, Affairs of the Nation. It will be posted up very soon on the Blog Talk channel, and then we'll post it up on YouTube as well. If you have any questions about ODWIRAMAN AFAHYE, the conference, simply send us an email via the site or hit us up on one of the social media networks, and we will reconnect with you. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in to the broadcast, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. That's up.